because my municipality is one of them, who question the validity of it. So there's a certain percentage. So those numbers are liable to change, and they're not final, not that I know of. So there are census numbers, and then there are final census numbers. So I don't know where other towns are in the process, but I can tell you that knowing a lot of elected officials, a lot of towns are questioning some of the census data. So it's a process you have to go through.
What you were saying earlier about the process, the early cross-certifications that were done,
yeah.
cross-acceptance, were done, what, 8 years ago, 2004?
06, yeah.
Are those opinions that were given at that time still relevant today? That was 8 years ago.
Well, many of
them, a lot of things have changed. Our taxes have gone way up since then.
Let me answer your question. What's most relevant is the disagreement that the state of New Jersey wasn't organizing itself and not changing and evolving with the times. So that part is quite relevant still. So we basically have filtered out all those statements of agreements and disagreements, working with our counties, and we're going to be pushing forward the relevant comments to state agencies in the development of their agency strategic plans. Okay. So there's much of what was said to us in local government is still very relevant.
Okay, and just one more. Thank you for indulging me. Will you schedule more meetings? The resolution that the governor and the lieutenant governor signed stipulated there should be at least 6 meetings. Based on the fact that every single meeting, people have asked for more meetings, and 1 per county has been asked for at every single meeting, will you schedule more meetings, specifically the 2 alternate dates that you already have planned, and possibly more beyond that? Will you do that?
We have passed that on to the administration, and as soon as I get an answer, I'll let you...
Who makes that decision?
I have a contact. They run it up the chain. It's not somebody. I don't walk into the governor's office and say, "Gee, can we have more meetings?"
But is he's who makes that decision?
I'm sorry?
Is the governor who makes that decision?
I couldn't tell you for certain. It's his staff. He has a staff who handles this sort of scheduling.
Okay.
And we will have to get the okay from the administration. So after every meeting, we sort of give them an overview of what occurred, and that's the one sort of consistent question we send over there, that there's been requests for more meetings.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Yes?
I have a question about
sure.
the metrics in the plan. I saw stuff that when you hold the links and look at supporting documents.
John, I'm sorry. You may want to speak up a little bit, because I don't know if the folks over there can hear
you. Want to use the mic?
I'm curious about some of the metrics in the plan. I saw information about distances from transit and things like that in reference to priority investment areas, and was curious about where those distances or the idea of moving people or building up housing close to rail lines or highways and things like that, where that idea was coming from, because a lot of us are more comfortable in a rural environment.
Right.
And I'd just like to know, is it like the American Planning Association's ideas, or is it something else?
It's not a new concept to have development oriented to our transit network. Right? It's a kind of very old idea. Probably one of the oldest ideas, maybe a couple 100 years old, actually. Much of what the impetus for that focus or niche in this plan is coming from the development community and the demands that are projected for development interest moving forward for the next generation of home buyer and the existing home buyers. We see resiliency in those markets right now in our data, and I think it's mostly coming from the private sector interest for developing in those areas, not some sort of snarky smart growth value. I think for the first time in a while we see the market shifting in that direction, and I think planning can be most effective when it works with the market, and the market's trending that way, and we look to work with it.
Is this in any way related to funds being put in that area? Is it a carrot and stick type thing, or is the idea now as a priority investment area to have like HUD investment and things like that in that area?
It's not the only variable we're considering for investment. No, it's not the only variable we're considering for it. It's one of the criteria that we're considering that could help us identify areas of the state, amongst others, that are compatible for future investment.
And keep in mind, John, there's priority preservation areas too. So if towns and municipalities want to preserve areas, certainly that's of importance also. It's not just one narrow focus.
And there's not like 3 transit hubs in the state. Everyone talks about Newark, Camden, and Atlantic City as the examples of cities and transit hubs. Well, there's probably 100 transit hubs in this state. What about Somerville, Red Bank? My town, Bordentown City, that's got a light rail through, which at my scale, a quarter-acre lot in my city is very comfortable for me. And this plan is all about having options, more options for our residents to consider throughout the spectrum of development patterns, suburban, small city, big city, and everywhere in between. So this plan really talks mostly, I think, about options and making sure that residents of the state that want to live in those options have a place to live there. That's what it's about.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. In passing, I think you mentioned something about coming up with criteria for preservation as well as growth.
Do you want the mic? Okay.
We can't hear you.
I believe you mentioned that you plan to come up with criteria for preservation. Is that correct?
We plan to come up with criteria for identifying areas of the state that are suitable for not just land preservation, like buying or preserving an easement, but also the investments we need to keep our parks safe and active, and also to steward the land that's been preserved already. And sometimes that means working with the private operators like the farmers to support their investments. They need to keep their farms viable.
And when do you expect that you will have that?
Yep, we have an advance notice of rules out. We're asking people to help us get it to a point. It's on the table and on our website. It's called an advance notice of rules, which has basically a couple pages on how this criteria will work, and actually a 1-page matrix about the areas of the state that we think are generally compatible with that designation. What we ask for is people to comment at this phase and then over the next 30 days or so. And then we take it to the next step of a rule proposal, which has several months of democracy through the New Jersey Register process, and that has a life of its own, and that's what we think can replace the map.
I've looked at that. It has about 2 lines that are extremely vague. When will you have more detail? For example, citing different kinds of water quality as a criteria for preservation of the area.
Well, I think this is the way we're doing policy here is we expect folks to help us develop it. And please take us up on our offer to tell us where you think we're short. And either tonight or in writing, then we plan to take that information, put it together in a rule proposal that we feel is the best balance for meeting the policy objective that we have. And then you'll have an opportunity to comment on that rule proposal several times through the development of that rule.
Yes, sir.
I was born and raised in New Jersey and lived most of my life here, but I have lived in 3 other states. And one of the things I like about New Jersey is the home rule we have. People are closer to the decision-making than any other place I've lived. I've heard you talk about state goals, and I've heard you talk about incentivizing, and yet you're talking about the authority of the local community. Can you assure us that no decision made by the state plan would force a community to do anything other with its land other than what they want to do with it?
Well, actually, as a local official, I was the one who was probably not the only one, but the one who was most conscious of that sort of thing creeping in. Because the one thing that small town mayors and council folks are so cognizant of is the dreaded unfunded mandate from Trent. And we do not want that. We want to partner. We had stakeholder meetings where we met with local officials to see what they wanted from the state as far as planning and to see the direction planning to go. And one of the things, we were sitting around the table, and there was a mayor from a town in Monmouth County that was a horse farming community. And she stood up and she said, "We are a horse farming community. We don't want sewers, we don't want centers, we don't want sidewalks. We want you guys to leave us alone. We'll make our own decisions." Right across the table, they're like, "Give it all to us. We want to develop. We want to build, build, build." So here you have 2 towns 10 miles apart with completely different development philosophies. That's beautiful. That's a thing of beauty. Now, the gal who wants the horse community to be preserved, we could partner up with her and preserve property and help them develop in the way they want, which is preservation, maybe expand the horse farming community. Now, the fellow who wants all of the development, you could certainly partner with them because that's the development destiny that those municipalities see for themselves. All decisions are going to be made at the local level. Local zoning and local planning will be preserved.
You use the term incentivize, and that word bothers me. I'd like to know what incentivizing would be.
The plan is completely voluntary and non-coercive. So,
but you used the term incentivize. What does that mean? How would you incentivize?
So let's say, for example, your town sees in its master plan that it wants to attract a type of business, right? And you have zoning from 1975 in place. Well, we know intuitively that that company may need to have modern zoning in place to meet the niche needs of that industry. Well, we could maybe help you amend your local zoning to get what you want and what we want, because we want to have job growth too. And then we could help you work on those ordinances so you have a more friendly business climate to get what you want and to help us get what the state needs.
So you're not talking about incentivizing the community?
Well, that's the community. That would be the local government.
Yes, but are you not trying to influence what the decision the community would make?
The genesis of the idea comes from the master plan.
I know. That's
and if they're having trouble attracting that rateable because their procedures are locally or antiquated, well, maybe we can help update them so they can become a magnet for what they want. And what happens to be what the state may want too.
So you're not saying incentivizing means influencing them?
Well, I guess it's semantics. I mean, some may want to look at that as influencing.
Well, I do.
So if you didn't want that support from us, you could say no thanks.
But as long as it's non-coercive, and that's what this is not a mandate. This is simply an advisory document. Okay. I think we have enough time for maybe one more. Yes, sir. Right there.
Yeah, there's a section of the plan on page 31.
Could you speak up?
Yeah, if you...
Section of the plan on page 31, item 2.6, that talks about strengthening the county planning role and potential future changes to the county planning.
Yeah.
Do you know what they are at this time, or will they come in the future?
They would come in the future. We think there's been a lot of conflict that act hasn't been looked at for 20 years or so. We know that there's counties around the state that effectively work and partner with local government, and local governments, for the sake of efficiency, look to their county government to play a real important role in their local lives. So in this situation, I think we envision a scenario where the County Planning Act is improved so that those ongoing relationships can be strengthened, and so the local governments can get efficiency and save money, and the county governments can help them consider issues from a regional basis. And I think the way we look at it is it won't be a requirement. So like, let's say the County Planning Act, we're not saying the County Planning Act should be amended to require planning and zoning to be taken over by the county. That's not what we'd be advocating for. What we'd be advocating for is we know that there's places around the state that are real effective, counties that are really effective working with their municipalities. And through voluntary relations like that, we can strengthen those outcomes that they've gotten in places like Somerset and Burlington, and if I forget another county, excuse me, I'm sorry, but those are two of the well-known examples of places that, through their existing relationships, they've been able to get a lot done.
Okay, so we're a little bit past 7.
Could I just ask one more question? Just one more quick question. Quick.
We had 3 in a row.
I know. I'm sorry. But a lot of people have asked for further clarification on what you mean by certain terms. And also at every meeting that I've been to, everyone's asked for definitions, a glossary, something like that, a meaning. So for everything that people have, I mean, we've recorded everything. If you need anything of record, just let us know. But
you've recorded everything?
Oh, believe it or not, yeah, it's all caught. Would you specifically write in the plan, it's not coercive, it's not meant to be an unfunded mandate, and it is not meant to infringe on home rule. These are extremely important points that aren't made clear in the plan the way it's currently phrased. And would you put in there the definition of sustainable that you mentioned today?
That's copied and pasted from the plan. What I read verbatim from my presentation is copied and pasted.
But all that stuff about non-coerciveness isn't in there.
We logged all those complaints.
We've logged them, Shelley. They're good points, and we definitely will take them into account. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. Everybody stretch, because we're going to be here for about 3 hours with questions, and then we'll get started. Okay?